Good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Renew podcast, where we are teaching you to reclaim your life without losing your edge. I'm your host, Kristen Andre, and with me today is my good friend, Shelby Trick.
Hi.
Talk about not losing your edge. Shelby is let's just say my edgiest friend. Right? I think that's fair.
Is that like the best intro?
I think it is. I think it is, because this will be fun. We've got Shelby with us for a few weeks, so we're going to tap her brain on a lot of different topics. But today we are talking about, and you and I have talked about this topic a lot.
We have.
We are talking about imposter syndrome, which is a big, big thing, especially in the working world, and it's more common for women. And I did do a little homework.
And good, because I didn't.
Good.
Flying by the seat of my pants.
Well, this is good. So what I read is that the imposter syndrome has more to do with high-performing women. So first of all, kudos to us for being high-performing. We did not know. But it's true. It's like very, very common. And you and I, when we've talked about it before, it's a little scary. I mean, when did you first hear the term?
Oh, wow. I don't know when I first heard it. I think it's one of those terms I felt like I came up with on my own.
Yeah,
I don't know.
You know what? In all the articles that I read, they did not credit you with coming up with the term.
Yeah, that's a shame.
I will. Shelby Trick has coined the phrase imposter syndrome.
No, I mean, I would probably say it's been within the last 7 or 8 years, but I think that's when I identified for myself and started having those kinds of conversations. I'm a little tired of the word authentic, but
Are you?
I have to put it in quotes.
Word.
I love the word. I love the meaning behind the word, but I feel like I always have to put it in air quotes because everyone's like, are you being authentic? Have an authentic conversation. So when I started having those authentic conversations about how I was really feeling about things and what was going on in my work life or even in my personal life, it led to a better understanding for myself of imposter syndrome and what that is.
Yeah, and where it stems from, because when I was reading stuff, it was interesting. The more I started reading about it, they said that this started back in like the 70s.
I could see that.
Which is true, because that's when we all started coming up and being told we weren't enough. And that's kind of where it went back to, is it said that a lot of times it came from always being told, you need to be more, or you weren't smart enough and all that. And it's this feeling, I mean, really what it is a feeling like, I don't know if I measure up. I don't know if I'm good enough, smart enough.
In your research, was it, I think you and I both, coming up through our careers, have worked in what we would refer to as male-dominated industries.
For sure. Yeah, because both of us have finance backgrounds. And
engineering, geotech.
Yeah. Some of Shelby's background, I don't even understand. But it's all male-dominated. Like in finance, when I stepped down from my old firm, we had, at the managing director, managing partner level, there were 7 of us that were females out of like 400 or 500 people in the whole country. Now, it's changed a little bit over the last decade, but not a lot. It's still definitely a minority.
Well, I think we just still refer to it that way. I think we're both observing change in those industries, in a lot of industries, but those are the ones that we're most involved in.
Well, what they said with the imposter, which was interesting to me, is it's more, it can affect anyone, but it definitely tends to be more skewed towards females. And it comes from the fact that we second guess ourselves a lot. And it's not that we're not smart enough or can't handle anything, it's just we just wonder. And people have always said that for a man to say, oh yes, I can do a job, they need to know 10% of what they're doing.
Yeah.
I think, and you guys, this is why I'm single, some of you guys don't know 10% about what you're doing with anything. Let's just be real. But maybe the ones in my world. Maybe Shelby says I'm being generous. 1%. But with women, we need to know 99.9% of all the things before we feel like, okay, we're good at this. We're an expert at this. And that's what imposter syndrome is. It's not that we don't know it. It's just we feel like, all right, if I'm trying this, if I'm going for this, I'm not being. I'm not all the way there. You're trying to be a little bit of a perfectionist.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was taught from a very young age by a very strong mother, fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Everybody, in some degree, everybody's got a little bit of that I don't think that it wasn't referred to as imposter syndrome by my mother, but
No.
everybody's got a little bit of that feeling like, do I know enough? Do I have enough?
Right.
Am I educated enough? Have I experienced enough? And it's like, just dive in. I've never suffered from not diving in.
Well, and that's the difference is you will just you will just dive in, and it's a lot of us do that, and I think that's what helps overcome it.
Maybe.
Because I've got, I'm a big assessment junkie. I've done all the things, all the tests, all the Enneagrams, all the stuff.
Yeah.
But one of the ones, my favorites, and I've talked about this on the show, is the Strengths Finder by the Gallup organization. Have you done that one?
I don't know.
Strengths Finder, it tells you what you're naturally good at, like what you naturally excel at. And it has kind of what your natural strengths are. Well, one of mine it's called Activator, and that just means you kind of dive into things. Mm-hmm. And the way I describe Activator is ready, fire, aim. So you just get ready, you dive in, and then you're like, we'll figure it out as we go.
I fire aiming, and then I'm ready.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm ready. I'm like, let's go, and then just jump in.
Thinking backwards.
I'm ready first, and then I just
shot, and then I'm like, maybe I need to adjust that.
Well, that's kind of what it is. You dive in, and then you course correct. You aim after you've already done it. But I think with people who don't have that naturally don't dive in, it does get hard, and they get paralyzed by imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because so many of us you're right, so many of us grew up, and I'm not going to blame my mom, if you're listening, because I know sometimes you listen, if, she's going to comment
hi,
in a
Mom.
minute. Shelby says, hi, Mom. I'm not going to blame Mom, because I get in trouble when I blame Mom.
Yeah.
I know. I'm harsh on her, and I don't mean to be. But she's the same thing. I was raised by a strong woman, and I was never really told you can't do this or you're not ready or whatever. I never second guessed myself.
I don't know when I first heard that, because that was definitely not something I heard growing up. I was heard you can do it. Like,
yeah.
I was raised also by a dad who believed there were no barriers for me.
I was too.
And I think at some point when I encountered them, I don't know that I remember my first barrier.
Yeah.
But I think when I encountered it or started to encounter them, I was like, what the bleep?
Yeah. What the F? You can say the,
I can
the
say
letter.
the
You can
F.
say the letter.
What the bleep?
Yeah.
Because I don't, in some ways I was prepared for it, but then I was also a little unprepared. So you're on your back foot, because next thing you know, you're like, well, did I really think I could do this? Am I as confident as I thought I was? And that's kind of so I don't know that the conversation was going to go in this direction, but here we go.
Whichever direction you want
But
to
the funny thing that I've learned about imposter syndrome and talking about it and kind of owning up to it and admitting it is that once I've done it, and then people are like, oh, God, I thought you were so confident.
Yeah.
I thought you just really owned the room. And then it's almost like they're disappointed that
They're not disappointed. They're secretly like, yeah.
That's what it sounds like initially. They're like, oh, well, I thought you had your bleep together.
You can have, I think you can say that.
I can say that.
But it's true. Like, we all have these varying degrees.
Yeah.
And as long as the thing with imposter syndrome, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just the fact that you're talking about it. And then, all right, so when I did this, there's this article I pulled up on the Healthline, which I didn't even know about Healthline, but it was a good article. So it said there are 5 types of imposter syndrome. So not only do we have it, we have types of it. So
we get to type ourselves.
Right, exactly. And I'm identifying with a couple of the types. So there is the perfectionist, the natural genius, the rugged. For those of you guys that are just listening to this, both of us, instead of watching it live, both of us just went, yeah. Okay, so we've got the perfectionist, the natural genius, the rugged individualist or soloist, like do-it-yourselfer, the expert, and the superhero. So that was kind of cool. So the perfectionist, I think I started out like that. And I think when I was younger, I tried to make everything just perfect. And then I had those little creatures that live at my house.
Those tiny humans.
Those tiny humans.
Little humans.
When you have the tiny humans and they get older, you let go of being a perfectionist. And for those of you guys that have kids that are listening to this that have not let go of being a perfectionist, you need to let go of being a perfectionist, because it doesn't work. The tiny humans will destroy the perfectionist tendencies, I think. Wow. I know you don't have tiny humans. They do. They rip it right out. You can't be, I know you avoid it. You're right, like, I don't want them. But you can't be a perfectionist, because if you are, you can't move forward. You're always going to feel like an imposter.
Right?
It is very paralyzing. And then the next one said the natural genius. And it said, the way it described it, you spent your life picking up new skills with little effort and believe you should understand new material and processes right away.
I identify with that strongly.
Right. So this is our Mensa folks, right? So all of our little Mensa friends, that if you just are used to things coming easy to you, when they don't come easy, when it's a new task or a new skill that you're trying to learn and it's not coming natural,
Yeah, I'll avoid it at all
you
costs.
feel like an imposter.
I'll bob and weave. Like my backhand in tennis, I'll work around it and forehand that.
Yeah, I can't even play tennis. I can't. But it's true. But what's interesting is it's all you though. Meaning like it's because you're used to picking up everything quickly.
Oh, yeah.
So to the outside world, we feel like an imposter because you're like, man, this isn't coming as easy to me as things normally
Yeah.
do. So we feel like an imposter. But to the outside world, they're like, oh, she's got it.
Well,
Because
maybe
it still
that's
may be
why when I
better.
admit that I don't, they're like, oh.
They're surprised.
Oh.
It's because you're a natural genius. Little did you know.
Well, I'll keep that in mind.
I know. Now that we know. All right, so the next one is the soloist. All right, this is, I can't with this. This is not me, because I will call in help. I will phone a friend all day long. The soloist is the one the rugged individualist. You believe you should be able to handle everything solo. If you can't achieve success independently, you consider yourself unworthy. So this is the one that like they have to do everything by themselves. Have you known anybody like that?
Are you looking at me?
No, I don't think you're not like that. I don't think you're like that.
I don't know. I might have some of those tendencies, only because I think going back to like.
I think it's because you don't like people,
Oh.
not because you want to do it yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's because people
are peoply.
It gets
Yeah.
peoply out there. But a lot of these are the people like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to rough through it myself.
Yeah, I don't know that I guess I would think this is like a lot of things where you come up with typing. You can identify a little bit with all the types,
Yep.
but I wouldn't say I strongly identify with that, but I do sometimes think it's easier to do it myself than to
pull into
to
it.
try and explain
Yeah.
my thought process.
I
I think
know.
I'm very efficient.
And
so-
I think so too, but I do see this in a lot of people that I coach. So a lot of my private clients that work on teams have this challenge. And the challenge has been they won't give up things because they can do it quicker, more efficiently, better. And this gets to be a challenge.
Yeah.
If you're working by yourself, that's okay. But I have leaders that won't delegate because they're like, well, I can do it quicker. I'm like, well, yeah, of course you can do it quicker.
Yeah.
That's why you're the leader. But until you can empower your team to do
Yeah.
stuff. So this is one where part of it is what was interesting when I was reading about the imposter syndrome is the result of it is the feeling of overwhelm. It's so the imposter syndrome stresses people out because they start to feel overwhelmed. Well, this is part of it. If you're taking and keeping everything yourself, it's easy to feel overwhelmed.
Yeah, anxious.
And then there's two more types. The expert says before you can consider your work a success, you want to learn everything there is to know on the topic. That one is not me. I don't know if any of you guys are listening.
How can I be all of these?
You can. No, you can. I know. Well, you could be, but some people are. But I'm curious. So those of you guys that are watching on the live stream, because I know we've got some people tuning in, let me know which type you're identifying with the most, because the expert is the one that they almost get paralyzed to do things. And I've worked with people like that. These tend to be the intellectual. So if I go back to StrengthsFinder with Gallup, there's a lot of the traits that are natural curiosity and learners, and they have to take in all the information before they can do. I'm more of a jump and we'll build the chute on the way down type of girl.
I think it depends on what I'm doing. I'm a quick. Going back to the other earlier type. I'm a quick study.
Yeah.
Things come easily to me. I can drink from a water hose.
Yep.
Or fire
hydrant, yeah.
fire hydrant, whatever. A lot of water. It can just be coming at me full
All the
speed.
things, yeah.
And I can pick it up. I don't necessarily retain it all for future reference, but I can get through.
Well, that's all right. So that's interesting because I do think a lot of this relates back to what we did in school. I was same thing. I could drink. I made really good grades in school. I was that nerdy, dorky kid. We've talked about that.
Yeah.
Can't retain a thing. Yeah. I could test and make a high A on a test, and the next day, if you had given me the test the next day, I'd forget it. I have this little bitty space where I retain test information, and I can regurgitate it, and then the next day, it's gone.
Terrible tester. Even once I got to college,
Were
some
you?
of my professors were like, how about we just have a conversation about it, or you write out long form your thinking, and they'd be like, well, you're spot on. I just was even then I was too afraid of the answer. Like I was like, oh, I can't do, no. But if I could talk it out.
You could do it.
Then I could.
But see, that just shows you how different people learn and act and, you know, show up. Because I've said this before, we did an education episode earlier in the year, and I think standardized testing and testing is just a very unfair assessment of somebody's skills and abilities. Just because not all people test well. I mean, I test well, so if y'all want to assess me, go ahead.
It's a siloed way of testing.
It totally is. Because my youngest, Kennedy, she can process. She's a verbal processor. She can talk through things, but she doesn't like taking tests at all. She doesn't actually like school. She did ask again yesterday when she can quit school. I didn't like
school until college, and then I was choosing my path.
She's hard. She's a hard no on college. She told me yesterday. She goes, I don't think I can do this. I'm like, she goes, I really don't want to go. I'm like, okay, so.
I think that's interesting.
It's not for everybody.
It's not.
It's not for everyone.
I mean, I should have been a NASCAR mechanic, so there's that.
That would be cool.
Kristen's like, pivot back to imposter syndrome.
Back to imposter syndrome. I think, well, maybe that's what it is. Maybe this whole finance career for you is a big imposter, and you really are a mechanic at heart. I don't know. I could not be a mechanic because I know nothing about cars.
No, but I love finance, but there's a part of that mechanicness-like thing to me that I like. I like solving problems. I like figuring things out. I like helping other people solve problems.
But see, that's interesting though, because then, I mean, it does lead back into the topic because, it's just like all these things we not pretend to know, but like it's really just kind of what we decide we're going to dive into, really. And it's just, that's the whole thing with the imposter syndrome is you can get over it. The part that bothers me about it, and then we'll talk about the fifth type, the part that bothers me about the imposter syndrome is it's the fake it till you make it thing. And it's, I know you hate the word, I know you hate the word authentic.
Yeah.
I think it's not faking it.
I don't hate the word, I just think it's overused.
It's overused. It is overused. It's not faking it till you make it. It's understanding you're not an expert as you're learning. That's the difference. Is like, I never liked fake. Fake it to me is fake. I don't like fake. I mean, I don't like fake anything. I don't like fake people. I don't like, I don't know.
See, I guess I took it as show up anyway. Like, put the smile on, even if you feel terrified and you're walking in there. I mean, I can remember 10, 15 years ago, like, going through something terrible, and then having to pivot, turn around, and go into a meeting where I needed to not look like I had just been going through something terrible.
Yep.
Dry your eyes, fix your hair, and go on in. And sometimes I think that's part. So I don't know that it's being fake, but it's womaning up. What's that? What would be a term for it? It's like manning up and like going in and getting done what needs to get done. That's always what I took from it. It wasn't. I struggled with this word the other day. Don't be disingenuous. Yeah, disingenuous.
Yeah. But I think that's what it is, because
sometimes you just got to do.
Well, you do have to do. And that's the thing is faking it till you make it, to me. Maybe it's how we perceive that. Because when I hear fake it till I make it, I take it as faking knowledge. I'm okay with faking enthusiasm. I'm okay with saying, like, because we've all, I mean, those of you guys listen, I know we've got Tommy, I know chiming in a little bit online too, so I know we've got guys listening as well, but for women, we have all, especially in male-dominated industries, walked into a meeting where we literally just got done crying. I was told in a meeting one time that I'm a terrible crier. I'm an ugly crier. Like, I am boohoo ugly, which is terrible since I'm obsessed with the Hallmark Channel. But I'm an ugly crier. Like, we're talking puffy eyes. And for those of you guys that, are not listening or not watching, I have dark hair, I have blue eyes. And when I cry, my eyes are like piercing, like they get blue, blue, blue. So not only am I ugly crying, I have these little blue daggers staring back at you. With
my eyes turn green and I look like I've been beaten with a paddle with holes in it.
It's terrible.
Like, it's just
But all of us have had that moment where we've walked into a meeting after a cry, and everybody knows. Like, I had one of my partners like, you're an ugly cry, and my eyes water if I get really passionate about something.
About to say.
And I've been in meetings before where my eyes will just start to well up, and the guys do not know what to do.
It makes me so mad. The first thing to go when I'm frustrated are these damn tear ducts, and
I know.
I'm like, I'm not sad. I'm not hurt. I'm pissed.
Right,
so
and they know that they can start to tell. My mom said that about me.
This is not hurt.
Right. I know. Like when I get really passionate, the eyes tear, and sometimes it's when I'm sad, but usually it's not. It's usually when I'm pissed off.
Yeah.
And if people know me, they know that situation. Like my mom told when I first met my ex-husband, he, bless him, he told my mom, he goes, Kristen's so, you're going to laugh. Let me just get through this. He goes, Kristen's so sweet. I can't imagine her ever getting mad. Right? I'm like, we had just started dating. He hadn't seen all sides yet. But she told him, she said, honestly, she is very sweet and she's got a really long fuse. But when you get to the end of it, you need to run. Like, and
my fuse, I think, seems short
it,
because people are all of a sudden like, whoa,
yeah,
where did that come from? And I'm like, you've been dangling from a cliff for like a year.
Right. It's true. It's true. It's like you get to the end and it's kaboom. But maybe maybe my part of the imposter syndrome is where I'm making the fuse longer. That's the part
maybe
I'm
because
faking.
the fuse
I'm
is
allowing
so
the fuse to be longer in certain situations.
Maybe it should just be nip it in the. I don't know. You and I have, I think, gotten. I don't know if it's better, but you and I are in a place now where I think that we do address things more quickly, nip them in the bud, chew on them, and then attempt to move on. We
do. Like I don't ruminate on things, but I'm also very, and I've said this a ton, and you guys know because I say this in the book all the time. Is I know my people. Yeah. And with my people, I'll give them a long fuse. If you're not my people, you're not my people. And I have a very small circle. Yeah. I mean, I know it seems like I have friends that are like, oh, you're always out and about. And one of my friends was messaging me yesterday. He's like, oh, you're always out and about. It looks like you're having fun. I'm like, I'm really not. Like I just have a couple friend groups that we take a lot of pictures.
They're very visible.
They're very visible. Yeah. And so it looks like, but it's,
inner circle is different than like
and I think
friends.
Like imposter syndrome, I don't have imposter syndrome in my inner circle at all. Like it just we admit our challenges, and I know some of you guys are listening to, we admit our challenges, we admit what we're struggling with, what we don't know, all that stuff. And the imposter syndrome, I think, comes when we're not comfortable enough to be either vulnerable or it's not authentic. I never think I'm not being authentic or that I'm being disingenuous. I never think that. I just think
there's layers.
I think there's
everybody
layers.
doesn't need to know everything. But I know some people that just bear it all, and sometimes I envy that a little bit. Then I also think
it's true. And the fifth type, and I think this is the bear it all people. The fifth type is the superhero.
But I'm
there it says you link competence to your ability to succeed in every role you hold. Student, friend, employee, parent, everything. So this, and y'all that have been listening know we are obsessed with superheroes in my house. Yeah. We do love, and I have all girls, but we love us some superheroes. I personally like Wonder Woman. Black Widow's been kind of a fave of late. Yep. Can't go wrong with the Ninja Turtles. They were my OG superheroes. I love the Ninja Turtles.
No, I was definitely
Mikey's my favorite.
I don't know if it qualifies as superheroes, but I was raised on Star Wars and sci-fi and Marvel Comics and the rest of it.
Marvel is not the same as I'm not a Star Wars. I know I'm going to get in trouble for this. I'm not a Star Wars person.
It's okay.
I don't know that that's a superhero. I know. Rhiannon's listening going, oh no. Rhiannon's just cut me off here. But it, the imposter syndrome, the superhero is really just like trying to do it all. You're faking it. That's where I see people fake it till they make it. They hold everything together. And people ask me, they're like, I get asked a lot, how do you run the business and speak and do all this and deal with the kids? I'm like, I don't. There are plates falling all the time. Yeah. It's just, I feel like imposter syndrome are the people that are pretending like I got it all together. That's what imposter syndrome to me is you're not being real. Yeah. So maybe we'll use the word real instead of authentic. Yeah. And I don't mind.
Sorry, I put this bad cloud on authentic.
Oh, that's all right. It's overused. It's totally overused. But if you're being real, you're admitting kind of where it is. I think for me, Tommy chimed in and said he identifies with the expert. That was his. That's his imposter, which is great because Tommy's obviously a guy. So, but I think for me, Tommy, it's the superhero and I used to be the perfectionist. I've let go of that. I think being a single mom with all those kids, I've let go of perfectionism.
I feel like I'm an ice cream squirrel of all of the types.
It might be because I think there's a mix for a lot.
I identify with different aspects of each of them, There are some that was definitely like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
I'll raise my hand.
Well, natural genius, I know that sounds terrible to say, natural genius, but it's not that. I think it's that a lot of things do come easy.
Yeah.
So the imposter syndrome is when something doesn't come easy, people, that's
I wonder
where
if I'm qualified to do it.
I wonder if I'm qualified. You start thinking.
I
And
start
for me,
overthinking.
I'm like, not my thing.
Yeah.
Like there's some things that just don't come
But when it comes
easy
to
me.
faking knowledge, like I'm the first person, especially in my field, to raise my hand and say, you know what, I'm going to bring in my JD CPA, I'm going to bring in my CPA, I'm going to bring in somebody else, and just I know the limits. And because of the field that I work in, it's important that I'm not sharing misinformation and I'm not leading people down the wrong path. So I have to stand up and say, here's where my expertise lies, and I'm confident in that.
But that's a big point. So
But-
stay on that for a minute, because I don't think a lot of people do that, and especially, in finance. I'm going to say this, and I know a lot of you people, Tommy, I know you're in finance and you're listening. A lot of people are listening. There are a lot of people that fake knowledge, and y'all need to stop.
Yeah.
Y'all need to stop, especially
It's doing you a disservice. It's doing the person you're talking
everybody
to or
a
your client a
disservice.
disservice.
And I see it. What's interesting is imposter syndrome affects women more than men in all the studies they've done. However, I think men are the ones that fake knowledge more than women. And I think so. I think women are
wonder.
more apt to admit when they don't know something.
Yeah, maybe.
And and again, I'm thinking of the financial advisors that I know and have worked with and had, because I speak a lot in that industry still. And what's been interesting to me is the women are more likely to say, oh, you know what? that is not my area, but I've got somebody in my office. Let me introduce you. Exactly like you just said. Let me bring in my JD or one of my CPAs or something. Where the guys will talk around it. And I've heard people talk before. I'm like, that's not actually accurate. And you just said it out loud, and when it comes to finance,
Well, and the worst is when
or
you're sitting
medicine
there,
or things like that.
The worst when you're sitting there in a conversation and you know what's being shared is like not
factual,
not all of it.
Yeah.
It's not rounded out, but then you're also in a position not to want to make the person that you're in the meeting with look
like a
bad,
buffoon.
and then you all look bad, and so you have to pick.
Well, and this is where,
Unless it's going to be completely detrimental to the person in the meeting.
And then you would say something.
You have a responsibility.
Yeah.
But
Well, especially in our fields. But what's interesting is I get imposter syndrome. Like, I understand it. I understand that all of us sometimes feel like we don't know everything we want to know or need to know. But what I'd love to see happen is, one, show yourself and the people you're with some grace, that you don't have to be a friggin' expert in everything.
Well, do you think that, so for me, when some of the, sorry, my little earbuds keeps falling out. I'm not trying to fidget.
That's all right.
But I think for me, I don't know that it was an official mark in time, like over 40, but I know I got to a point where I was super comfortable with myself and super comfortable with what I knew, what I didn't know. And then I got more comfortable with saying, okay, like, the wheels are not going to fall off.
Right.
I'm not going to get fired. My friends aren't going to fire me. My job, like if I'm admitting that I don't have all the things or all the answers. But I think there was a point early on in my career where I was afraid to admit that I didn't know something. I don't know that I put anyone or my job or something like that in harm's way. I didn't try to portray something that was inaccurate.
Right.
But I also didn't raise my hand to point it out either, because I remember, and you might remember, like in our age group coming up through our industries, it got a little dangerous.
Yeah.
Dangerous. God, that sounds so.
Oh, they were dangerous, I can tell you.
Woo, danger.
There were some dangers in there. For
Danger.
Sure.
Will Roger. Yeah, now I'm aging
Now
myself.
you're aging yourself.
Yeah, way to go. All right. Well, but where people would use that against you. I mean, I can remember being in situations and, where that.
Yeah.
I don't know, where.
It is. I think you get to there were dangerous situations too, but you get to a point where, and you and I've talked about this a lot, because Shelby and I are good friends, and we have other friends that we have some text strings that are really, really funny. Tran and I were talking about this, like, if any of our text strings ever come to light, it's going to be crazy. But we send a lot of memes back and forth,
funny.
and like I think it gets to a point in life, and this is one of the memes I sent you, where you have given away all of your F's. You are just done with them. I have no more F's to give. I am just going to roll with the punches and see what happens.
Yeah.
For me, that happened, I think, mid-40s.
Yeah.
And you're not quite to me. You're younger, so.
No,
Yeah, but I think that's when it happened.
I say almost 50 now.
You are so not almost.
I am.
She's rounding up a lot.
I'm not.
That's okay. I am well into my 50s now, so I can say this.
You are not well. Different podcast.
True. It's true. But no, I identify as older. But I think once I hit mid 40s.
Older.
Once I hit mid 40s,
I identify as 25. What
right?
are you talking?
No, I don't want to be 25 because at 25, I wasn't admitting all these things. Like, here's the thing.
Yeah.
For those of you guys that are listening that are, all right, Tommy's listening is younger, and a lot of the people that are tuning in and listening are younger. I know, not super young, but I'm looking, we got some 20s and 30s in here.
Which Tommy?
Tommy Borio my friend up in Connecticut. Yeah. So Tommy, you haven't met him in person. Tommy's younger, but Tommy works in finance.
Yeah.
So he knows like kind of the persona. I will say he's not really into, Tommy's not an ego guy. So it's not, he's not one of the people I was talking about earlier that's, saying all the bad things. He's an honest advisor, which is good. But as I'm looking at the people that are tuning in and listening, we've got a mix. We've got 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s. Jeff Hunt saying well into my 50s. See, you know.
Well.
I know I'm not. I'm like a year. But anyway, it's with all the people listening, if you are 20 years old or 30 years old and you're sitting here going, I'm faking it. You're not faking it. You're learning. And understand and show yourself some grace that from the ages of birth until like your 40s, you're still learning. I'm still learning all the time. I just got to the point where I don't give an F if I don't know something right now. Like, I understand, and I expect people to understand, none of us know it all. If we look back at the types, we expect everybody to be superheroes, especially women, especially moms. We expect us to do all the things. And you and I talk about this, is a whole different topic. You and I talk about this all the time. The amount of stuff that we have going on at any given time is a lot. We don't expect. So there's the thing that frustrates to me with the imposter thing is not that you don't know it. It's just that we feel like we have to fake something. Yeah. And don't quit faking things.
So this just came to mind because something that, so don't fake it. Yeah. And show up. For sure. Here's my advice. Don't let a feeling of inadequacy or something like that cause you not to show up. And I know I have a girlfriend who, very shy, doesn't want to go to the big things. And I'm like, can we just commit to 5 minutes? It's kind of like exercise. If I can commit to 5 minutes, I'll probably do 30. But once you walk through the door, but you're only committing to a little bit. Now I'm talking about networking or something like that. But when you're in, meetings or in your office or in your work and doing things, not knowing something is okay. Mm-hmm. But ask intelligent questions. Yeah. Know your audience. I guess and maybe that's scaring the people with imposter syndrome. And that's where I get a little nervous because I'm like, ooh, should I ask the question? I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Because I want to ask questions sometimes, but I don't because I'm afraid that the question I'm going to ask is going to highlight something that, shine a light on something I don't know. But I still need to ask the question, but I try and do it intelligently.
Well, you should try. Yes. If you have a question, ask a question. If your question is rooted in the fact you have not been paying attention, that's your own fault.
Well, there's that.
I'm speaking to one of my children on this one, but
I thought you were speaking to me.
It wasn't you. But if you've been paying attention and you're like, because here's the thing: if you have the question, somebody else in the room has the question.
You're right.
And if you're asking a question because you tuned out and were playing on your phone or put your phone away, do something, pay attention.
A fly could come by and I can tune out.
Well, I know that's we all have that.
And I'm not ADD.
But I think it's, the thing is, we've got to ask questions. This whole thing, I
don't want to scare people from asking questions, but be thoughtful in the questions you're asking.
And my beef with the term, I guess, imposter syndrome is, we don't need to be imposters. We don't need, imposters mean it's like you're being somebody that you're not. If the person you are has a question and it's an intelligent question and it's going to help you learn, let's think back to the learning. Ask the question. Yeah. If it's a stupid question, then you have to be ready for somebody to go, well, that's a stupid question. Okay, still a question. Yeah. You've got to control the controllables. You can only control what you do, how you act, and your reaction to it. Yeah. If people are going to think you're an idiot, let them think you're an idiot. People think I'm an idiot all the time. My children think I'm an idiot.
I really don't want to know.
My children verbalize the fact they think I'm an idiot.
I really don't. I don't want to know if you think I am. Just keep that to yourself.
It's true. No, I don't think you're an idiot. That's the thing. But you and I've had part of the imposter. Now we're going to go a different direction this, which is interesting. Part of the imposter syndrome is, all right, the definition is just being somebody you're not, trying to be an imposter. You just hit on something that I think a lot of women do. And you don't even know you hit on it. You don't even know what I'm going to say. Shelby's sitting there staring at me like, what is she about to say? A lot of women, the imposter syndrome is the opposite. They know more than they act like. They know more than they think. Because you and I have had that conversation. People don't realize, like, you'll start talking business and people are like, holy crap.
Oh, I'm underestimated a lot.
I am underestimated a ton.
It's a superpower.
And, people, it is. It's true. But that's part of imposter syndrome. And it's not like we're being fake, but I feel like, a lot of our, we were both Mensa folks. Like, we're nerdy smart here. It's just, but no one gets that. Like, they don't get to see that side unless, because I know you, because you and I've had very deep intellectual conversations.
Yeah.
But that's also part of imposter syndrome is the whole thing is we just need to show up as we are. If you are stupid smart and nerdy smart, be stupid nerdy smart. If you are an idiot, as long as you're not hurting anybody, be an idiot. I mean, I don't care. Just be you.
Yeah.
And that's, I think.
Freak flag fly, baby.
Let your freak flag fly. I mean, we've talked about, my kids are very different from one another. Different, like, just interests and hobbies and everything. But it took me a while to get where they're okay. I was okay with their freak flag flying because they're very different.
Yeah.
And, I kind of, when I was little, we all were put in this little box. Mm-hmm. And so my kids don't fit in the box at all. And it took a while but I think that's part of where imposter syndrome came from. It's not the younger generations that I see it. It's our age. It's the 40s, it's the 50s. It's the people that were told you need to be like this. You need to know it all and you need to just kind of fit in this nice little package.
I think there's going to be a different thing going on with some of the younger generation, and it's a catch-22, because I've appreciated some of what the younger generation has come in. They come in super confident and they're owning all the things, but then there's not a sense of humility.
Correct. I agree with that.
Which is sometimes a little off-putting. But then I don't know. Should people be humble if they know all the things? It's just
you can't know all the things.
There's experience,
y'all. You can't know all the things when you're 20.
There's experience.
You have to get things. But there's a blending of the two.
I think we should always encourage
curiosity and learning.
Curiosity, learning, but also an appreciation for experience and what you can learn from being curious and asking questions and not coming in with all the answers. And that one's been a tough one for me.
Yep.
I think to learn. I consider myself a curious person, but I also want to be the go-to person for answers. So there's that give and take of being open.
And that's where we've got to find our balance. But I think the opportunity we all have is be curious, learn, seek answers.
Yeah.
At the same time you're doing that, if you don't know the answer, be okay with saying, you know what, that is a phenomenal question. Mm-hmm. I do not know, but I will get you the answer.
Yeah.
And that's what I tried to teach, when I ran my firm. That's what I tried to teach our newer advisors. I'm like, if you don't know, tell me you don't know. Great question. I've got an expert in my office that I want to consult on that. We will get back with you. I'll get you the answers you need.
Yeah.
That's okay. That is an okay answer. No one expects anybody to be, they want you to find the answer, but they don't expect you to know it all. Mm-hmm. And you should be curious enough to learn if you don't know. Yeah. Especially, those in occupations that are really affecting people: finance, medicine, legal, all that type of stuff.
Technical.
Yeah, any engineers. I want you guys to know the answers. If you don't know how to do a math problem and you're an engineer building a bridge in the city of Atlanta, let's please consult an expert.
I love watching my husband just add things in midair. I'm like,
he's an engineer, so he's got the brain. Some of them do that. I know my daughter, when she was in school, they, growing up, she would get in trouble and they'd be like, well, you didn't show your work. She goes, well, I just did it in my head. And I'm like, they're like, there's 18 steps. I know. I'm like, okay, well, I was writing it out.
But that's not my talent.
But I think, all right, the main thing with this, I think it's a takeaway, is if you are suffering from, and I say suffering, that sounds like such a
Well, I think some of us do
word.
Suffer. I'm sorry about this earlier.
No, it's true. I think if you're suffering, you've got to take a look at why. So go back, let me read the types again. You've got the perfectionist, the natural genius, the rugged individualist, the expert, and the superhero. Figure out which of those things, or multiple, you're identifying, and what is it about? Because typically it's that we're trying to do too much, say too much, act like we know too much, and
something
that
I do,
that.
and I can't remember if a friend pointed this out, like shared this with me, or if I came up with it on my own. It was probably a blend. But when I encounter those things where I'm starting to feel that way or wondering, I ask myself, what am I afraid of? What is this fear?
That's a good question.
What's the fear response? Because it's generally rooted in some feeling of inadequacy or being fearful or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Or, it's giving me anxiety. Like, why? What is it?
Yeah.
And sometimes I can identify what it is, and it's like, fine, do it anyway. I tend to do things that scare me because those are the things that change me and challenge me.
Yeah. Well, and it's true because a lot of times it is what's scaring you. And frequently with imposter syndrome, we're scared that people are going to think we're not smart enough or not good enough. What was that Stuart Smalley thing from SNL? You're smart enough, you're good enough, and gosh darn people like you.
Yeah.
I mean, if y'all watched SNL, since my children watch every episode, that's a big thing.
You is
like
smart,
we're worried. You is smart. You is kind. You is impotent.
That's my favorite.
I love that line, but it's true.
But we all need to be imbued with that.
Yeah.
I mean, how wonderful if we all had some beautiful woman sitting in front of us saying, "You is smart. You is kind. You is important."
Yep. And then we wouldn't have
like the little girl. I've sent you the video of the little girl that stands on the sink counter. And she's like, I love my house. I love my life. I love my everything. I love my I love my brother. I love my sister. And it's like, I need to drink more coffee.
I know. I love caffeine.
I need to start my day like that.
Yeah, but it's true. And I think if we could
affirmations,
do that, then maybe that would cut down on expecting us to be perfect everywhere else.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
We'll try.
All right. Well, Miss Shelby, wow, we're going to practice doing this. But I think for everyone out there, we've got Shelby with us for the next couple weeks. So we're going to learn all kind of knowledge. But for those of you guys listening, thank you for tuning in, and really make an effort to kind of give yourself a little grace and not try to be this perfect person, because none of us can do that, and it's putting a lot of pressure on yourself. So quit being the imposter and start being the real you. So we will see you next week for another edition of Renew.